All right, everyone. Matthew here again. Welcome back. Episode 9 here today. I am excited to get this continued and keep going. Hopefully, next week I will have a guest, potentially. It'd probably be my father, but we'll see. We're going to try to get him on for just a short episode just because I want to see how the back and forth goes, how to be able to incorporate that into the editing software I have. So today, of course, we're going to do the hole-in-one, or the birdie and the double bogey. We'll talk a little all-star baseball, of course. We'll do a top 5, and then we'll go on and talk a little bit about my Seattle trip, because not that it's not for a couple of months away, but really looking forward to that. So I've got some things planned for that one at least. Today we'll start off, of course, with the birdie and the double bogey. Birdie is, I've got, for the most part, all of my trip planned out. I've got the plane tickets bought. I've got the date set on when I'm going to the football game, the baseball game, and the golf. I'll probably make a trip up to Mount Rainier and check some wildlife out and some national parks. That'll be kind of neat to see. More or less just looking really forward to all that, that the city of Seattle has to offer. So I've got a lot of that taken care of for the most part. Got to get a rental car, but that'll take 2 seconds. So that'll be a nice little long flight from Miami to Seattle, that's for sure. And then, of course, I am going to probably be going home either the week after or the 2 weeks after I get back from Seattle, just because the nephew's turning 1. I'm going to celebrate his little birthday and give him a little present, so that'll be kind of fun too. So I'm going to be taking off a couple of days of work down here. Looking forward to just kind of taking a break, just continue to, for the next couple months. I might be kind of busy with work, so I might not be able to play as much golf. But, it is what it is, and that's kind of how life works, So, with that being said, the double bogey, I'm sure if you all caught it on my podcast, my last week's podcast episode, I filmed everything, had it all in my editing software, did a few edits, wasn't perfect, but I at least got it out there. Went in to export it onto YouTube and Apple Podcast, went back and rewatched it, and it cut off the last 5 minutes of the podcast because I figured out what I did, so which is good. So hopefully this week's episode, when I export it, at least a full-length episode will be on there. I am trying to implement 2 camera angles, so I have this one here, obviously in front of me that I'm looking at, and then I've got one over here. So I'm hoping to see if this one I can look back and forth from each angle. I can have 2 separate angles. That would be kind of neat to see if I can implement that in there. We'll see. So hopefully later tonight when I'm editing and putting this on there, I'm able to have 2 camera angles. Now, I'm not really sure exactly. I see it on other podcasts and stuff, so it's kind of, a definitely different perspective, which is kind of neat. I'm not going to be looking at both cameras at every time, but it is definitely a neat little addition to the setup. Now, with that being said, I do have a microphone. Obviously, this one is set up for the camera in front of me. I have another microphone set over here with this camera here. Hopefully, it's working properly. If not, I'm still going to export it and then go about figuring it out what I need to do for the next setup. Now, I do have another wireless. Well, no, because that won't work. I don't know. I'll figure it out. So, with that being said, that's my double bogey and my my double bogey and my birdie. I did be able to get out there and play 9 holes yesterday. Shot pretty well. It was, like a twilight round, so they didn't allow carts. That's one thing I've realized, that it's much harder to film while not riding, because one, you can't have really a GoPro on the, there's no cart to have a GoPro, which I really want to implement. Now, there is also the forgetting, dragging your bag around and then having the tripod and everything set up. So that's definitely a difficult thing. So I really am pushing that if anyone wants to come out and, whether they like golf or they like film, you know, you can get out and help me film, play around with me. I'll go back and film you too, you know, to where at least I can get some good camera shots and the pace of play isn't slowing down. Now, if I'm in a cart and I'm filming myself, I don't have a problem with it, but you know, it is nice to have two people filming and going back and forth with that. So I am looking into getting a camera eventually. I don't know if I need a camcorder because I've seen camcorders out there. I know guys like Bob Does Sports and the Good Good and the Bryan Bros, all them, they use camcorders because I think their zoom is better than what most cameras could do. I don't know. Regardless, looking forward to maybe investing in a camera here in the next little bit. The iPhone is working out great, just fine. So, I mean, I'm not going to stress about it right now. Well, anyways, we did have, I'll dive into a little bit of YouTube golf because, you know, that's kind of what started getting me into this space, this podcast world. I already do kind of every episode want to talk a little bit about what has been produced out into the world, like what Grant is doing, what Bob is doing, what Foreplay is doing, you know, along those lines. I know Grant is playing he just posted a 2v2 against, with Phil and Grant versus Bryson and Garrett from Good Good. That was a pretty good, I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who wants to go out there and watch it, but it was definitely a fun match to watch. And then you had Jersey Jerry just put out today, actually, which I haven't even been able to see, Breaking 100 series, which is probably one of my favorite series on YouTube golf. Jersey Jerry's started golfing about 2 years ago. Still has yet to break 100. He's got it's always fun to watch him play. He's very interesting. Probably my favorite on the Barstool gang, just because his whole personality and everything about him is just so funny. And then you've got Riggs. He did his $25,000 match with the drawing a blank on his name, but that's definitely a neat watch. Great match. Almost, I'm not going to spoil it, but it was stroke play. That they had to play all 18, ball and hole. Definitely a very interesting match to say the least. It is neat, you know, because he's got all these haters online, and to get him to put $25,000 on the line was definitely a fun watch, that's for sure. Bobby Fairways and them, they took a little break. Now, they did just post a video, I want to say yesterday, of Fat Perez and Cold Cuts playing from the tips versus Benjamin and Bobby from the front tees. I actually just got done watching it. I was doing things around the house. So interested in going back and watching that. Looked like a pretty close match, though. Didn't get to catch it all, but definitely we'll have to put into that one or watch a little bit of that one. But we also are going to get into my baseball. We've got, obviously, baseball is one of my favorite things to watch as well. The MLB All-Star Game is coming up soon in about a week and a half, I guess. I guess my Cardinals are in third place behind the Cubs and the Brewers. Cubs are leading the division right now. They've got like 54 wins, and the Cardinals got like 49 now. They had a nice little win last night against the Nationals. They got one tonight, and then they play tomorrow against the Nationals. What's today? Today's Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah, tomorrow against the Nationals, and then they got Friday, Saturday, Sunday against the Braves at home. If they can somehow take, I guess, 5 of 6, these 6 home games in this series, and go into the All-Star break with that, I'd be okay with that. I'd be great, really happy with that if but Brendan Donovan is our only representative for the St. Louis Cardinals in the All-Star game next week in Atlanta, which I would say is unfortunate, but at the same time, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you do in the All-Star game. It's what you do on in the regular season and getting into the playoffs. I still think the Cardinals have a pretty good shot. I'm pretty optimistic about their chances of getting a playoff spot. There's a very tight race. I think the Brewers, the Giants, Cardinals, Padres are your kind of wild card spots. Your division leaders right now, I believe, are the Cubbies, the Dodgers, and it's not the Braves. Mets, yeah, Dodgers, Cubbies, and Mets. LA, Chicago, and New York, surprise. And then you do have, I think the Mets might actually be in a playoff. Um, the Mets might be in the, yeah, the Mets. Oh, and then the Phillies are up there, of course. You can't forget about the Fighting Phils. They're playing some great ball, of course, with Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber. So yeah, you've got Phillies, Cardinals, Brewers, Padres, Giants, kind of all in that little 1.5 game tight race for the wild cards. And of course, in the American League, you have Detroit Tigers surprising winning in the AL Central right now going into the All-Star break. You've got the Houston Astros and a surprising Toronto Blue Jays leading the divisions in the AL. And then, of course, the wild cards, you got the Yankees. They're not going to not make it. I hate to say it. They'll probably end up winning the division. Struggled as of late, but you've got the Tampa Bay Rays, another American League East team, which is really neat to see out there, kind of pumping in some fans in Tampa, even though they don't even have a stadium right now. They're playing at George Steinbrenner Field. And then, of course, Seattle Mariners with Big Dumper and Kyle Raleigh. I'll be heading up there here in a couple months. It's going to be an interesting game. If that Cardinals, with the Cardinals being a wild card spot, Seattle being a wild card spot, that game could be very important to both the Cardinals and the Mariners. So, being in Seattle, I will probably buy a Mariners hat. I always like to represent the home team, even though I'm a Cardinals fan. I'll still be wearing the Mariners hat, but rooting for the Cardinals at heart. So that'll be such a neat, really game. I really kind of hope that they do come down. It does mean a meaningful game up there in Seattle. That would be really neat. Ticket might cost a little more, but whatever. It's a vacation. 49ers and Seahawks should be a really neat game. It's a first game of the year. Of course, they love their football up there in Seattle, which I'm looking forward to. But since we're talking about baseball, I'm going to get to my top 5 today. I know, like last week, I did my top 5 YouTube channels. I'm going to do my top 5 baseball stadiums I've visited. So with that being said, I haven't visited all the stadiums yet, so don't bark on me or whatever about all these things. This is my opinion. This is not like what MLB has ranked as the top 5 stadiums in the league. This is my top 5. So with that being said, these are, I've been to probably, I don't know, probably, I'll say 17 of them. So I haven't been to all of them yet. Safeco or whatever they call it up there in Seattle now is not one of them because I've yet to visit, although I hear it's a pretty cool park. But we'll start with 5 and go to 1. At number 5, I'm going to have to go with, I hate to say it, but Yankee Stadium. It's a new one. I was able to go visit old Yankee Stadium in the Bronx back in the day when I was a younger kid. Didn't really remember too much, so I went up to New York about 2-3 years ago. Went and watched the Yankees play. Very awesome experience. Great environment. Passionate fans. Can't go wrong with that. Now, I did get to go into the little Hall of Fame center field legends area where they had the Mariano Rivera, Babe Ruth, Derek Jeter, Mickey Mantle, all the little plaques of the historic retired number of players. That was really, really neat. Just being in the Bronx, and you know how passionate those Yankee fans are. Definitely an overall great experience. Aaron Judge hit a home run when I was there. I sat down in the right field line right next to the judge's chamber. The roll call was definitely a neat little thing they implemented over there in New York. So that would probably be my number 5. At number 4, I'm going to probably have to go with, now this is opinion again. I'm not going to say anything to do with Miami. Now, the best experience I've had at a baseball game was probably at Marlin Stadium. It's definitely not my top 5 stadiums, but I'm going to give that one as like an honorable mention, and I'll talk about that after my top 5. But my number 4 is probably going to be Petco Park out there in San Diego. Just got done visiting it. I loved it. Great food, great atmosphere, great weather, great team. You know, I got some great seats down the left field line, literally a row off the field. It was probably one of the cooler stadiums, at least. I walked through the Padres Hall of Fame. That city alone, I mean, just alone is absolutely beautiful. I mean, you can't go, the weather is just fantastic. So with that being said, number 4 is probably Petco Park. And I'm leaving. And then number 3, I'm going to probably have to do my hometown, Busch Stadium, St. Louis. It's hard to put this not at 1 just because I am a big fan of the Cardinals. They're my team. They do normally show out from what I've heard. The attendance hasn't been all there as of recent, but at the same time, I'm still, love for the Cardinals is always going to be there, whether it's I'm in Miami or I'm in Seattle or wherever I am. Just the love of the team is always going to be fantastic. But those are probably, the Cardinals is probably my number 3 stadium I've ever been into, and I will be attending another game there eventually. Number 1 and 2 are kind of toss-ups. Number 2, I'm going to go Wrigley Field out in Chicago. Cubs, they've got just a history behind it, the ivy on the walls, the beauty of downtown, or that north side of Chicago, that Wrigleyville area, just the environment, the passionate fans of Chicago. Obviously, Cubs have had it pretty hard as of recently. They did win one in 2016, but overall, the atmosphere, the food, the stadium, the history behind it, very, very neat environment. I'm going to put that at number 2. And at number 1, I am going to put Fenway Park. I went to Fenway Park last year when I went up to Boston, and that was probably I can't, words can't describe the feelings. Just walking around the ballpark, into the gates, out to the stadium, looking over the green, seeing the green monster and all the environment that Fenway Park has to offer, the history, it blows. I said there's probably a toss-up between that Wrigley and Fenway. It blows Wrigley out of the water. There is nothing cooler than walking into that ballpark and seeing the monster and everything, all the greats that have played there, from Babe Ruth and all the legendary Yankees like Mickey Mantle, and then the current legends. You've had all these guys like Big Papi and Derek Jeter and all these other, these guys come through there now that will be future legends. Probably, I walked into the gates and my hair stood up on my arms. I got the chills, and I'm not gonna lie, it was probably the first time. I don't know if it's because I've gotten a little older, and gained some appreciation for things like the history of places. But because I hadn't visited Wrigley Field until I was probably early 20s and didn't really appreciate things for what they are until But now that I'm a little bit older, I think I gained a much appreciation. I literally walked into the stadium and tears came down my face. It was just that pretty of a sight. I know some people might poke fun at that, but I thought it was a really, really, really neat experience. I highly recommend getting yourself a Fenway Frank up on top of the Green Monster and singing along to Sweet Caroline after the 7th inning. Honestly, if it wasn't so darn cold up in Boston during the winters, I probably wouldn't mind living there. That city just really, the people very welcoming. Obviously, it is a East Coast city. The stereotypes are real. When people on the East Coast can be a little on edge, or they're not as Midwestern as I'm used to. But I guess I'm living in Miami now, and there's a whole different kind of world down here. So with that being said, those are kind of my top 5 stadiums. Number 5, Yankee. Number 4, Petco. 3, Busch Stadium. 2, Wrigley Field. And 1, Fenway Park. I did, like I said, I'm going to have some honorable mentions. I will give, obviously, Dodger Stadium. When I went out there, it was a fantastic stadium, old, historic. Between Wrigley and Fenway, it's the oldest stadium in the league. It was definitely a neat experience. Got myself a Dodger dog. Walked around the park and saw all the history behind that too. But the fans weren't so much as into it. I mean, yes, you've got a ton of people there because they're winning right now. They weren't really paying more or less attention to the game. There are a lot of people doing the whole selfies and hanging out and texting and doing their own thing on their phone, where you go to places like Wrigley and Fenway. And I know Busch Stadium, most of the people, yes, they'll take their picture, but they're pretty much focused on what's going on in the game for the most part. So that was hard to see at Dodger Stadium. And then I'm going to give an honorable mention here to Miami Marlins Park, or Lone Depot Park, or whatever they call it now. I went to a game there. It's probably one of my least favorite stadiums overall, but when I did go there for the Dominican Republic versus Venezuela game, USA versus the Venezuela, and USA versus Japan, that World Baseball Classic is a must-see experience. If you ever get the chance to go to a World Baseball Classic game, maybe it was just different here in Miami because we do have such a big Latin community down here, but those games were absolutely out of control. I mean, the passion that these fans showed finally for something other than whatever these Latin people are passionate about. The love of the game of baseball. A lot of it was selfie taking and stuff too, but once the game got started, people were into it. There was a lot of scoring, a lot of, watching Trey Turner hit that home run, walk-off home run. Was it a walk-off? Anyways, I'm not really sure. I don't remember, but it was just such a fantastic experience. Probably one of my favorite baseball experiences I've ever lived through. It was nice to see actual people down here in Miami get into baseball again. Hopefully we can see more of that in the next upcoming World Baseball Classic, which I plan on going to, of course, again. So those are my top 5 baseball stadiums I've visited. Hopefully maybe Seattle can jump into that. And we'll end the episode there. So thank you for watching. I appreciate you coming out. I hope you have a good rest of your week. And hopefully next week we're able to get my father on. It will probably be another short episode. But again, hopefully we're able to get him out there. So